Hi, I'm Chris Shaw, and I'm going to be doing a workshop today looking at creating sculptures out of recycled paper. So, to start though, it's always nice to have a theme, something to get your teeth into. And I'm going to be looking at an ecosystem, basically a pond, and the different life that lives there, the diversity of life that lives there. And to start out with, I'd like to just show you this book. It's a book called In the Pond, and it's by Ermanno, Cristini, and Luigi Puricelli. And it's a book without words, which makes you really have a look at the life that's there, the drawings that are there. So let me just show you some of the pages of this book, and we'll go through, say, having a look at some of the life that's in there. Because there's such diversity of life, basically biodiversity in this pond. We've got all kinds of different life forms. So if you have a look here on this very first page, we see the pond, and we see a tree frog up in the corner there, hidden behind the reeds. And we have a few eggs here. And just hidden too behind the reeds, we have a black tern, which you can see just poking its head out there. And even in the corner here, we've got a dragonfly. So it kind of introduces us to this pond, this little ecosystem called a pond. And look at the next page here. There's kind of a little bit of a narrative here because we've got the tree frog, and then we have the tree frog again. And this time we're introduced to some of the life that lives under the water in the pond. We see a fish, a carp, just swimming along under the water. And the dragonfly is just resting on the top here of what looks like it might be a water lily. Okay, then we go over here, and we've got the dragonfly again. Seems to run through as a theme here. And we have a water lily coming up here, just opening its flower, and our lovely little tree frog appears again. I mean, this time it's on a lily pad. Because the frogs themselves, as you probably know, they have a rather unusual life cycle. They lay their eggs in the water, and then those eggs hatch into little larvae, which you can see actually swimming around here. And then they slowly develop into a frog, which can then come out of the water and live on land. So it's really quite fascinating, the whole life cycle of a frog. Something you want to look into and investigate if you haven't done so already. Then what else do we have here? Okay, so on this one here, we have a different bird introduced. This is a sandpiper, and obviously animals need food. Birds need food to eat, and this one's found himself a nice snack, a pond skater for supper or lunch. And over here we see a little water skimmer, and we still see some of these lovely little tadpoles swimming around in the water. And down here there's a little crayfish as well. So you can see how many different types of life forms that you might be able to find in the pond. And I'll just skim through this one here. And here we are introduced to a different bird again, a plover, who's building its nest in the pond. So it's wonderful because it's a wonderful habitat for so many creatures, so many animals, so many different plants. And it's because something that we really want to keep is in our environment is these rather healthy environments that support animal life and support plant life. So in this one here too, we see the turtle swimming in the water. And the nice thing about these artists have done, the artists who created this book, is they really looked for some of the details. Like they looked, they've painted in the feathers, and they've got the scales of the turtle. So they've really observed nature. And that's something that is kind of invaluable if you're an artist sometimes, is to watch nature, what's going on. And as a scientist as well, to to see how the plants and the animals are all interacting with each other. And here we have our little tree frog again. And this time we're introduced to a different animal, a bullfrog. And over here, I think, does this one have the snail? No, I can't see the snail. But this one has another little tiny larvae, mosquito larvae, because mosquitoes actually lay their eggs in the water as well. So, and then I'll just turn over again. And we've got, yep, there's the snail. Again, so much life, such diversity of life in the pond. And we have another little mosquito in the corner there. And this time we're introduced to, looks like, I don't know if you can guess what animal it is, but it's let's see if I can do it. It's actually, you can see this one here, it's a duck, a mallard duck that they put in there. And here we can see the little tree frog trying to get some more food. The mallard duck too is eating the weeds, the different plant life that lives at the bottom of the pond. So again, it all supports each other. And here we've got some more water lilies. And we have on this one a little mayfly just sitting on the lily pad. There we go. Some more fish coming in there. You can see how fascinating it is, and it's a whole book without words, and you can make all kinds of stories about it. And here we have kingfisher diving in. Can you imagine what it's going to eat? It looks like it's aiming for one of those fish there for its supper. And here we have a tiny little inchworm, which is a larvae of a moth. Again, so much life in this pond. And that's something these artists wanted to capture. And we have our wonderful tree frog now in the water because they can swim and crawl around on land. And we have, looks like here, a lovely little snake called an adder. It's a checkered adder in that one. So again, more life. And we have water buttercups for some of the plants growing in there as well. And here again, just at the end here, now we've got, say, different types of animals. We haven't had any actual mammals so far. We have a little muskrat appearing there as a mammal that also depends on the pond for its habitat and for obtaining its food as well. So a beautiful book that really the artist tried to capture all the life that's in there. So what I thought I'd do, this inspired me, this book, because I thought, wow, I wonder if you can make sculptures for some of these animals out of recycled paper and card, because like being able to use that recycled paper is really important. Being able to, get paper that is from forests that are sustainable, so trees are grown to replace those that are taken, is a really good idea. So that's where I've gotten my card from and my paper. Scrap paper, of course, you can use for some of this. So let's start with our first creature. I'm going to show you different techniques you can use to create them and make them three-dimensional rather than flat. So what I've got here is a piece of card, and I'm using card for these because it's structurally stronger. It's recycled card. And what I've done is I've folded it in half, like so. And then I have thought about, okay, I'm going to be looking at first arthropods. And one kind of arthropod, of course, is a spider. And there was a spider in our pond, probably building its web and hunting for food. So to make this, what I've done is I've cut out a kind of a half of a spider. And in order to make this, I'm just going to show you how to cut this out, because you have to be very careful when you're cutting it out that you don't chop off the legs. So I'm going very carefully up to the first corner and then down along one leg. And I'm just going to do this as quickly as I can for you. And then up, very carefully. And then, I don't know if you can see that, turn around like this. And then back down the other leg. So now I've got my legs. And you say it's a good idea to start from the bottom of the legs and go up, like so. And if you think you might chop off the legs, then start from the bottom of the next leg as well before you cut out the body part. And of course, you know that spiders have how many legs? 8 legs, right? They're arachnids, so they have 8 legs. And you also probably know that they have 2 body parts. I'm just chopping out this little leg here. So there we go. Now, when I'm doing this too, because I folded the paper in half, what I've got is a symmetrical spider. So each side is the same in its size and its length. Both sides match. Now this is tricky when I come around this part here. I have to start from the head and round. Just take lots of care when you're cutting out. So you don't want to lose your spider's legs, because if you lose a pair of legs, you'll end up with an insect, which only has 6 legs. So, okay. So now, and of course all this scrap paper can be used, and I'm going to show you how you can use all this scrap, well, it's scrap card, it's not paper. You can use this later. So I'm going to put that on the side for now, and we'll be using that to help create some other things too. So yeah, so basically I have a symmetrical spider. But at the moment it doesn't look all that spider-like, does it? If I open it up like that, it's kind of interesting. It's definitely 3-dimensional, so it's a sculpture. But what can I do with it to make it more spider-like? Well, you can fold its legs. So what you can do with that is take one leg and you fold it back, and then fold it the other way, sort of about, so you leave a little bit for its foot hanging over the edge, like so. Can you see that? So I've gone back towards the body, fold it over like this, and then I'm going to fold those little feet back towards the body again. And now I have much more of a spidery looking leg, don't I? So this one here is one I did earlier, and his legs are folded, but of course I've had him in a flat for, or her. I don't know if that's possible to have males and female spiders, but I think so. Again, this is all part you can do when it comes to researching animals or creatures, or arthropods in this case, if you're really fascinated with arthropods. So I'm just going to fold his little legs over like this. And back again. So I've done that for all the legs, and then you have your 3-dimensional spider, which you can hook on all kinds of things. So, one creature you can make. Yeah, you can get a little bit more technical if you like, because that was one of the creatures that was actually, one of the animals that was actually in the pond. I have another one here, which is a little bit trickier, and that is, I'll just open up the legs here. Again, they've been sitting a little flat, which is the nice thing about these is you can store them. So if you're not actually using them, you can store them in a flat one. And this one also is symmetrical when I create it. So I'm just going to put little legs out here, just refolding the legs. And you can see, if I open up a little bit there, that I've got a dragonfly, which is rather fun. You know, so, and of course, you notice I haven't put any colour on this. If you're going to create these, when you cut them out, you can color them and put all kinds of details. Like you can put all those wonderful, delicate lines on the dragonfly's wings. You can color the body and show all the... And the dragonfly, though, the dragonfly is actually an insect. It's not an arachnid like the spider. It's an insect. So you can see here I've got 3 body parts too. I've got one there, the thorax, and then I've got the main body, the abdomen, and the head. And the other difference too between arachnids and insects is that the insects have little antennae. So I'm going to show you how you can do that too. So, right. Okay. Put this one over the side there. So what I did to make the dragonfly is, again, I did a half of a dragonfly and a half of its legs. So here you can see the thorax. This is the abdomen, the head, and the little antenna there. And of course its wings. And here I've got a different section again where I have done 6 legs, because insects, of course, have 6 legs, whereas arachnids have 8 legs. So now, so when I cut this one, I'm not going to cut this one out because it takes a little while to do that. I cut this one out, and you have to be very careful because these legs are very delicate. So when you're cutting out, be very, very careful. And of course, folding the legs, it's the same thing as the spiders. Back, back, and back. So back towards the body, down towards his foot, and then up again. And that's what I did with this one. So this one has the legs, they're so skinny. So you do have to be very careful when you're making them. There and there. So I've got that. The little legs really likes to kind of wobble around a little bit like a dragonfly too. There. And then I cut out this one. And how I made the antenna, if you can see, so this is the cut out part. How I made the antenna is I just opened it up and took my scissors and made a little slit just on that little part there for the antenna, and then fold up the antenna. And you can give them a little twist if you like to make them more antenna-like. So, and then to attach it, what I do need a glue stick, which I have here. And I'm going to use one of my little scraps of paper just so I don't glue the table. Put glue on the table. I can put this little piece here, and I'm going to put some glue stick on the body, like so. And then I'm going to attach, this is the abdomen part, I'm going to attach that to the abdomen of the top section. And just hold it in place for a little while. And make sure, of course, I put my top back on my glue stick so it doesn't dry out. That's always a good idea. Okay. You don't want to waste things. You know, wasting glue stick, of course, is, not something you want to do. So there we go. Now I've got my dragonfly all ready to fly around the pond. Yay. 2 dragonflies now. There. I'm going to put those to the side there. And move this over the side too. Okay. So what other kinds of life forms did we have? We've just talked about arthropods. Another creature, another animal that was in the pond, of course, were the frogs. And frogs are not arthropods. They are amphibians. Again, I can do that symmetrical trick, so I don't have to do as much cutting out when it comes to legs. And something I learned actually about frogs is that they have, or a number of them, have quite a few toes. Depending on the type of frog, they have 4 toes, actually, for their front little legs, and their back legs have 5 toes. So much like us, we have 5 fingers, 5 toes, although in this case they have 4 toes at the front. So again, what I've done is I cut out Now, this has got two frogs here. I've got a bigger frog and a smaller frog. You can see just there. And I'm going to, if you're interested, I'm going to be leaving some templates here that you can use as something that you can draw around. But of course, you can actually create your own frog shapes. And I really encourage you to do that because every frog, different types of frogs, they're all different. So, so I do encourage you to, create your own and study your own and have a look at what's in there. So where did I go to make this frog here? Here's the big one. And this is the smaller one. It was much harder to get all those toes in the small one. So this is what I did. I cut them out. And then I used the same technique for the frog as I did for the spider and the dragonfly a little bit. Folded it back towards the body, then back down the other way, and then up towards the body again. So here I've got one little frog, as you can see, just there. It's kind of resting, sitting on one of those lily pads maybe. And same thing for this one. Did exactly the same thing, only this time, because it's so small, I just kind of did one fold, really, for the front legs, because it doesn't really work very well otherwise. So you've got some frogs. And of course, you can look at the details, the colors, the textures of your frogs, where the eyes go, like on your frogs. Like you can actually put all those details before you fold. You can use your crayons or your pens and draw on all those details and those textures. And I'm not doing that now because I'm going to leave that for your challenge to do, as well as making them, of course. So I'm going to put this over here. Got quite a few different life forms coming together. Okay, and this one over here too. Right, so what else was there? A little. This time I'm going to, this is not something that I felt that you could do easily to capture the character of the creature. This is a newt or a salamander, which you might find in the pond. But it's not really symmetrical when you usually see one. It's very asymmetrical. So what I did is here, I kind of drew my quick outline on the paper, on the card. Sorry, not this is card, because it's structurally much stronger than paper. And so that's what I did first, is I kind of, had a look, what could I do? And I encourage you to do your own. And then to make it a little bit more three-dimensional, as you might see here, what I did is I kind of scored the back of this. And I'm just going to show you how you do that. And I've used a pen. You can actually, if you don't want your lines to show up, you can use like one of those old ballpoint pens, something that doesn't ink anymore. Rather than throwing it out, again, recycle it and use it for scoring. So what I did for this, just to get it more three-dimensional, is along the center of my amphibian, because newts and salamanders are amphibians, just like the frog is an amphibian. And I went and I used, you'll notice I put like a little layer of felt, because to do this, to indent in the paper, it helps to have something soft. You can use scrap paper as well underneath, or just a piece of card underneath. But I've used felt because it gives you a little bit more of a, indentation. But you do have to be careful you don't push all the way through. Otherwise, of course, you're going to rip your card. And then what I did then is I very gently went along this scoring that I did and just made it sort of come out so it's like three-dimensional. All the way to the end there. So it's got a lovely curly tail. So you can see it's more three-dimensional. But then, of course, you also need the legs to work. So same principle again. Back towards the body, out on the corner where its little joint is, there. And then back up this way. So folding it, and then back up for its foot. And then again, 2, back up for its foot, and back towards the body, out, and back for its foot. So now I have and I can even, if I wanted to, I could fold the neck, the head up a little bit. But now I have my newt or salamander that can also join my pond. That wonderful, rich ecosystem with so many different life forms in it. Okay, so that one is that. Now, what other kinds of life forms? We've covered arthropods, amphibians. What else was in the pond? Well, I did notice one other kind, well, a couple of others, there were quite a few, and that is the snake. So, snakes. I love snakes. Snakes are, of course, reptiles. And what I've done here is, so as I don't waste my card, is I've actually drawn 3 snakes. I've drawn one very long, curly one, another one that's kind of a little bit smaller. And it's quite easy to draw snakes because, you know, you're dealing with lots of curvy lines. And this one is a little spiral for a snake. And again, what I've done with this, much like I did for the newt or the salamander, is I scored the back with my pen. And you can see the lines there. And then what you do again is very carefully do a little pinch around all the way to that scoring, pinch around. Just very carefully, because you say you don't want to rip your card. You just pinch it. That scoring helps you to create this fold, this 3-dimensional fold. And then you have a more 3-dimensional, it's kind of like a relief sculpture rather than sculpture in the round, which you can see from all angles. It's more like relief. It kind of comes out a little bit there. And then the same for this one too. I did the same thing, although you can see I kind of like did a few lines there to experiment with this one. And same thing, very carefully give it a little pinch so that it becomes more 3-dimensional, more like a relief sculpture that then can hang off one of those things in the. So you've got that one. And this one, what I did with this one, it's a bit hard to kind of make this one do that. You could certainly try. But this one is more like a spiral. So if you open it up, the little tiny one, you get like a spiral snake, which actually turns out to be a little bit more like a sculpture in the round. And if you're really careful, you can do the pinchy thing, but it is very tricky. So it's kind of nice, so you've got that. So yeah, so reptiles, snake. And it's definitely very asymmetrical. It's not symmetrical when you're doing this one. Okay. So I don't know if anyone else can think of another reptile that was in that pond in the book. Don't know if you can think of another one. But maybe you can. Maybe you're ahead of me. So what I have here, of course, is a turtle. And I've outlined the turtle. And then, again, it's asymmetrical. So I've kind of, cut it out. Which I did here, I cut it out. And then what I did for this too is I was actually looking at the turtle, and I do have turtles here that are man-made. I wish I had a real turtle. And I also have a kind of one of those fake snakes. And the nice thing about snakes, reptile snakes, is they actually have a skin that's covered with scales, bony plates. And you can see that on this snake here, the bony plates. It's a plastic snake, but yeah, it's kind of cool. And this one here is a very, again, these are old toys. This one here has, you can see the bony plates. And these creatures, like when you're looking at the amphibians, and and you're looking at reptiles, like the snakes and the turtles, these all have, they have bones inside. When you're looking at the insects and the spiders, they have something called an exoskeleton, which means their skeleton's kind of on the outside. So, yeah, so there's a little bit of a difference there between the two. Right, I'm going to put these down there, out of the way. So to get those details, like to observe those details, what I did here is I did a little bit of embossing. I took my pen and I went and I pressed in all the way along this design here, and I'm just going to finish this off, this little design, just by pushing this in here like this. Give it another little line here. So I'm pressing down, not too hard so it doesn't rip the card, and it makes this little embossed, so slight relief. It's called slight relief on the top of the paper, and you probably can't see this. So one way you can highlight that is to actually use a pastel. And you could do this with your snakes as well. You could actually, but you don't want to go too fine with your detail, otherwise it doesn't come out too well. So what I'm going to do here is just very lightly, this is chalk pastels, and then you'll see what's happening with the relief there. This is a chalk pastel, and I'm just going to put that there, and I've got lovely red fingers, and rub it over, and you can see where the embossing is. So it's kind of a neat trick to do if you've got a pen that doesn't work and you want to do something like this. It kind of works that you can see the embossing. And it shows you too. Can you see that? See with that? The embossing there. So it kind of highlights it up if you want to add a bit of colour quickly that way, and because you can mix all kinds of different colours in there as well. But you have to very lightly with the chalk pastels, and that highlights it out. So, and again for the eyes, because on this one I did actually emboss a couple of eyes on there. So I'm just using the chalk that's on my fingers. That's the only trouble with chalk pastels, is they do tend to rub off and go places. So now, to make my turtle more three-dimensional, I'm just going to use a rag and wipe off my fingers a bit here so that they don't get red on everything. Now, to make this more three-dimensional, what I've done here is folded the body this time underneath and then back out for that little head. So the head has just gone back and then out. And then with the legs, I've done the same thing. Fold it under, just once, actually, for this, on that side. And I've folded it under, and then back on that one, and under and back, just a little tiny bit that way. And then this one, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm folding back towards the body, and then just a little tiny amount. I'm giving it a little bit of an angle there, back the other way. And then what you can do too is just give your little legs a bit more three-dimensional by giving them a little tiny squeeze, and his head a little tiny squeeze, and his little legs at the back there. And then the whole thing, if you just kind of make a little, like a tiny little roll like this, and then you have your turtle, which can go swimming around in the water. So that is your turtle, and a different kind of reptile with bony plates on the outside. Okay, now, so animals, what else? What other kinds of animals were there? Well, there were birds. So one thing you can do with birds, which might be kind of fun, is you could actually make mask. And I've made one here completely out of card. This is a little mask. Wonderful for making up stories and doing plays and all kinds of things like that. And this one too, you've got the potential for different types of beaks. This one, what I did for this is I scored the back just a little bit, and then gave it a little pinch this way, so it kind of does this little fold. So you can have a tiny little chick one if you like, or you could actually add, if you like, a beak, a nice long beak like that kingfisher that was diving for the fish there in the book. So what I did for this, to make a beak, you can see I did the same thing. This is the fold of the paper. So, and this actually, I've got a little template here that you could use. So this is the beak, and it's got just a little indent there and along there, and that's the mask itself. Cutting out the eyes is something that's a little tricky. What I've found is a good idea for cutting out eyes is to make a hole first. So I'm just going to do this I'm going to open this up because I've got I could make 2 masks out of this because I've folded the card so I don't waste it. If you make a little hole with your pen and then cut with your scissors, it's much easier to cut out the eye. So you can then cut out and around. This is something that, it's just a little trick. You can kind of like cut very carefully all the way around. And once you start, it's much easier to cut your eye out. Well, not cut your real eye out, but your bird's eye out. Okay. And around to there. So you can see, it's quite easy once you start that hole, but that is a little trick. I just thought I'd share that with you for now, for making the hole. So cut it out again, and then this part here, which is a symmetrical shape. Again, this one is kind of asymmetrical. Yeah, cut this out, and then how I can attach this is quite easy. I make, where this little fold is here, I've cut just a little snip right there, and another snip right there, about halfway along. And then what I do with my beak is I'm going to just very carefully here put this one in there like this, and this one kind of slides down like this, and then I can fold it back, and then if I want to keep it more secure, it'll stay on pretty good as it is, but if you want to make it more secure, you can actually glue down those little flaps on the back here, and then you have your kingfisher mask. Cool. So, and of course you can, before you put the beak on, you can color this all and, put your feathers in there and, yeah, just make it look real bird-like with all the colors that you want. I think it's a good idea, though, to glue that extra little beak on, because this one is wanting to slide out there. So, yeah, so great for all kinds of, having fun. You can make your own play about the birds. What else was there? Let me see. Birds. Different types of life forms that were in the pond. I do remember, and I've got to be able to find it now. There it is. Another kind of life form that, because birds have backbones, but this is a mask. I'm going to put that back over here. Oh, I didn't show you something. How to make this part out of card, because you don't want to use one of those plastic straws. We really don't want to use plastic straws with our environment, so how can you make your own? Card straw or paper straw. This one's actually a paper straw. The mask is made out of card because it's stronger, but you can make paper very strong. What I've got here is a sheet of paper. Again, it's recycled, and I'm starting, and I'm going to use actually a pencil for that, because it's really good to have a pencil. And you can start with your pencil, so somewhere in the center there, and roll. And just keep rolling. Right, so you have, ooh, came out the bottom. Came out very easily. If it doesn't come out, you can just get another pencil and poke it through and it will come out. So I need my glue stick again, just to glue this in place. I'm just going to hold this like this, and scrap paper so I don't put glue on my, it came right out. Don't put glue on my felt. There we go, nice bit of glue. Fold it up, Just hold it in place for a second. And then you have your handle for your mask. And then all you need to do then, of course, is flatten one end, glue stick, and you can glue it onto the side of your mask and you have your handle. So, yeah, great way of using recycled paper, and especially for this, you could actually, anything that's been printed on, so if you've got some old paper of things that you don't want to keep anymore, you can use that. Okay, oh, and I must remember to put my top on my glue stick. There we go. Okay, so that is bird mask and how to do that. So what else did we have in our pond? I think you might have spied this. Fish. This fish has been eaten, I think, because there's not... It must have been very tasty. But it's kind of cool for making sculptures, like three-dimensional sculptures, is to make these little skeletal things. You can make snakes like this as well. And it's kind of fun. What you need for it is, and I'm just going to bring my little tub of supplies over here, you need these rolls of paper, which you then cut into whatever size you want for your sort of bones down the center. If you want smaller ones, you can just cut it in half like this. And this roll of paper I actually rolled flat. So I took the roll of paper and I rolled it, so it didn't start from a corner. It started right from an edge and then rolled it flat. So in that way I'm gluing all the way along so that it holds its shape there. Let me see if I can show you with that one. I'll give you a little idea here with this one, what I mean. So for this, what I did, and this is quite easy to do, again, with scraps of paper, you can make these all the time. So I just made a little fold very quickly along the edge, and that rests my pencil against it, which helps you to start folding. And you can fold, use all your fingers to keep it in place, and keep going. There we go, like so. So now I've got, a flatter piece. And I need my glue stick again. I hope you like building sculptures. I find it kind of fun to see what you can do. You can really experiment and try all kinds of different things with it. So, and I encourage you to do the same. See what you can make. Challenge yourself and see what kinds of three-dimensional sculptures you can make out of recycled paper and card. So I glued it down and then all the way along. So now this one, of course, when I cut this, it's going to hold its shape. Right? And then how I work with this is I just had to get a piece of wire, which I thought I had with me. But you get the idea. Let me have a look here. I got my piece of wire. Somewhere in here, I think I might have a piece of wire. My piece of wire has disappeared, but I think you can get the idea. You can use your scrap card and cut out different shapes. Oh, thank you. A magical piece of wire appeared. Excellent. And make a tiny one. Yes. This looks like a twist tie. Might be a nice use for a tiny fish. Thank you. Okay, so I can cut out a tail. Again, you can make your tail shape and cut that out. So I'll just do a very quick tail here. And it's going to be a tail there. And then you do need a thumbtack, and I've got my little thumbtack here. And make a little hole at the end, like so. There. And you can put your wire in through and just hook it around so that it will stay in place. And then from there, you can start stringing all kinds. You can thread one little paper bead. And then this is all using your scraps of paper, right? You can cut out the next part of your fish's body. It's going to be quite a circular fish. It's not really circular usually, but we'll. And then you can thread this through. Goes all the way in there. Make the hole a little bit bigger. I have to give it a little bit more of a wiggle with your thumbtack. And then it should go through. Where is it there? Ah, there it is. There. So you can see, and then what I do is I'll put another bead. They're disappearing. There they are. Okay, another little paper, recycled paper bead on. And then you can put another body part. And you keep going, and you can make it bigger. So that's what I've done here. And it comes bigger. And then at the end, you attach a head. And you can make your fish head, whatever shape you like, whatever kind of fish that you're finding. So yeah, so it's another little technique for making sculptures. And you can make snakes like this, all kinds of creatures that you can do with this. And they're wonderful. They can make wonderful little puppets too, because if you attach a string, you can hang and make it move. And yeah, again, it's wonderful for creating all kinds of stories and all kinds of plays that you can do. And it's kind of neat to set up, you know, as a little sculpture display. You could even make a mobile of these. You can hang them up on a piece of wood and just have them all sort of swimming around in the water. So lots of ideas, lots of things you could do. Right, let me tidy up a bit here. Put that there. So fish, another kind of animal that you will find in the pond. One thing I haven't covered is plants. So lots of different animals. We've had arthropods, amphibians, reptiles, birds, fish. I haven't gone into mammals, but I should leave that to you. So different types of plants that you can make using these techniques. So what I have, one of the plants there are the reeds. And how can you create a reed? Let me tidy up this. And I'll put this over here. Okay, that one for there. So, creating the reeds. What I did to create the reeds is I rolled the paper and I cut it into these lengths, or actually had the paper and I rolled it into these lengths here. So I've got 3 of them. And then what I did is I took another piece of paper. This is paper. Just open it up here. It's a scrap piece of paper, recycled paper. And I folded it in half and then in quarters. So it comes around like this. And made like a little thing here. And I threaded it through my tube. And then I actually made some little reed leaves, which you can fold a little bit if you like. And I've left a little bit at the bottom there. Just going to cut that in half. So I have 2 flaps at the bottom, which are going to come out. Not the greatest of cuts, that, but anyway, you'll get the idea later. So I've got like a little base, and you'll need that for later. And then, so I'm going to, again, it's like threading. I'm going to put this leaf and just hook it inside, and then I can open it up. And I can, again, if you want to colour these before you put them together, you can. And I'm going to thread it through another one, like so. Whoops, one second. There. Okay, another one, and then I can put another one on top. And then what you will end up with, and I've got this one here because I'm creating a little diorama of a pond. So what I did for this is, again, here's my reed. So I've threaded it through and I've got my little reed leaves in there. And to attach it on the back, I glued those little flaps down. And sometimes just to reinforce it, you need to put an extra little bit just inside, like a folded paper inside, just to make sure it stays up and doesn't wobble, because it loves to wobble. But this is my little pond diorama that I'm starting. that I can put all kinds of different creatures in, which is a really kind of fun way to make a sculpture. No color, you notice, but I'm leaving that to you. So how did I make this wonderful little lily flower? That's another little trick. I'll show you that one quickly. And thank you for being so patient and watching what I'm doing. Now I have a piece of wire. Ah, that's where the wire went. I knew it was here somewhere. Okay, so to make this, what I did again is I drew 3 different shapes. They're all the same. So I used one template, which is like one of these, and then drew around 3 of them, and then cut them out. So I have one that doesn't have any cuts in it. I have another one that has a little cut down towards the center. You notice I made a little hole. I punched a little hole with my thumbtack. Very careful, make sure you don't poke your finger. Made a little hole with a thumbtack. And in each of these first, and that's, if you have a look here, there's the little hole. And then I cut down to one corner on 2 of them. Or not corner, into the center for 2 of them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold them over a little bit to make it more 3-dimensional. So this one I'm going to fold 1 petal onto 1 petal. Glue stick again. And I'm going to put some glue stick on there. And then put this one here. Hold it in place. So I've got that one. And then this one, I kind of chopped off the paper a little bit. So I'm going to really fold this one over about 2 petals or maybe even 3 petals. Depends on how much you want it to stick out in the center. I might just go for 3. So I'm going to put glue stick on 3 petals. And then I'm going to fold this around like this so that it will stay like that. Just hold it with your fingers there to make sure the glue sticks. So now I have 1, 2, 3. And for this, again, what you can use, you can use old buttons. You know, like if you've got buttons that on old clothing and stuff, you can use old buttons and just thread through a piece of wire through that. Or you could use old beads. This one's got old beads. And then you start with the one that's folded the most, just here. And then if it gets, I think I have to make my hole just a little bit bigger with the thumbtack because it closed up a bit when I folded it. So you can thread through again like this. Ta-da. And then the second one, and again I'll make sure the hole is big enough to go through. And then we got here, through. I've got 2, and then my last one here. Like so. And then so that it doesn't slide off, because you see it wants to do that, you can just give your, hold on to the top there where the bead is or the button is, and just give it a little tight twirl, a little knot or something, and it holds it in place. And then, of course, you can make a hole in your base, your pond base, with the thumbtacks. I'm going to have a few lilies here. And thread it through. And I mean, I made a hole too. Started with a thumbtack and then put a pen through. And you can either make it sit right on the top, or you can give it a little bit of height by having it go a little bit higher, and then just give it a little twirl underneath, and it will stay in your pond. So that's, if you can hopefully see that, there's your little pond there. So again, I can add all kinds of things to my pond life. I can add my frog. Where is it? I don't know if my little tiny frog has disappeared somewhere. I'm going to put my little snake. It's going to be twirling around. I could put my dragonfly. Let's find the dragonfly. There's a tiny frog. Put little frog sitting on top of your lily pad. You can have lots of fun making all kinds of things with this. So, you know, my dragonfly could sit on the top. I might have to glue some of these down. But you can see where you can really start creating a really fascinating diorama of the pond, of the life that you've seen, and hopefully you get a chance to look at a pond and actually see all the different life that's there, the diversity, the biodiversity of the life in the pond. So, yeah, so anyway, that's kind of a fun sculpture to make, is a diorama, and that really captures, you know, all that wonderful rich life which we want to keep going on our planet. There's all that wonderful life that we have. So I'm going to tidy up a little bit here. So I've got lots of bits and pieces all over the place, and my glue stick there. Okay. So one last thing I was going to show you, and that is I've got so many things here now. Let me see. One last thing I was going to show you is how to construct some gift boxes, because it's always nice. I mean, it's lovely to make these things for yourself and investigate, but it's always nice to give people things as well, to give gifts. One little trick is to take an old box and fold it the other way. You can decorate the sock that's got the pattern. You can fold it, it makes a good net, and fold it to make, this is an old one too that I've got here. You can use those. You can also create your own nets, and that's this one here. I've got a net here. As you can see, this one, it looks like it's going to be a cube. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares with their little tabs to help glue down to fold. This one here has got a square base, but it's got 4 triangles. So that one looks like it might be, I wonder if you can guess, a pyramid. And on the back here, I'm just showing you this on this one here. If you have a look at the net for this one, you can see rectangles. I've got 4 rectangles and a couple of squares. So I don't think that's going to make a cube. That's probably going to make a rectangular solid. And this one here has a little triangle in the middle, and then 3 rectangles. So you can kind of figure out roughly what kind of a shape that's going to be. So let me show you what they're like when you fold them up. So when you fold up your nets, you can make these wonderful things. Have you guessed this one yet? That's this one. It's a triangular prism. There. And this one's a rectangular prism, solid shape. And this one is your cube. And this one's a little pyramid. And then to tie in with our themes that we have here with the pond, what I've done is inside these little tiny gifts, and of course you can decorate them. I have embossed some of them as well, but it's kind of hard to see with the light. But that's something you can do, is emboss the sides before you fold them up. But inside each one of these, I've put like one of the little creatures from the pond. This one has a tiny little snake that's inside that you can fold up. And you have to just glue where the little tabs are, which, you know, I know that you can do. This one I've added a little hook and a little, so it just holds it in place. This is quite delicate. And inside this one, I've got a little tiny green spider, because you can use different coloured recycled card to make your creatures. What do I have in this one? I'm trying to remember what I put in this one. So these make lovely little gifts. Oh, in this one I have a tiny little green frog. It's decided to sit down in this rectangular prism. I can put the top there. And I don't remember what I put in this one. And in this one, I put one of the berries, which is rather nice. So, yeah, it goes inside. And you can see, like on the edge of these nets, there are little bits on the edge there that I've used. I've just glued them and then fold them in so that it will make, and of course left the top part not glued down so you can open and close it. So there you go. Lots of ideas of things that you can make, sculptures you can make based on the pond. So have fun, see if you can find an ecosystem that you'd like to study, and see what creatures you can make. You can make a diorama or some gift boxes, and have lots of fun.